Hey everybody, it's Safi and Marco. Dish out on the movies. Today we're actually reviewing a movie. And the only person I see in the movie I know of is Viggo Mortensen. Everybody else is unknown to me. And Marco has the name of the movie and when it came out. What is it, Marco?
This is called The Reflecting Skin, and it came out in the early 90s.
Okay. And it is a weird movie. I guess he thought maybe this would be a horror movie because it does sound like it has something to do with vampires, but it really doesn't.
The synopsis was very deceiving because it said this movie is about a young boy who discovers that there's a vampire woman in town and she's killing kids. And it's like, wow, that sounds like a great story. It sounds like a variation of Fright Night. And then you watch the movie and like nothing happens the whole movie. And it's nothing like what the plot says whatsoever.
Well, there's something happening, but it's very subtle, and you don't see the actual event play out. You just see the very beginning of it, and then you see what happens at the end of it, but nothing in between. So the thing is, what we see is that these boys get kidnapped and they get killed and by these certain people, and then also it wasn't just boys, it was a woman too at the end of the movie. The one actually who they thought was the vampire. And I think the reason why the kid thought that she was a vamp, well, they had something about her. He and his two friends had something about her anyway. They do these gross things with a frog. I don't even want to say it.
Yeah, let's start off because we have to go through the whole movie.
It's so disgusting.
You know?
I can't even, when I think about it, it makes me want to herb.
Well, this whole movie makes you want to throw up.
It's
there's
just no ending.
Well, yeah, that's the other thing is that this movie has no ending.
No ending. They just cut it off. And I'm like, why would they do that?
And it's almost like purposeful because it's not really a movie. It's like an art house, pretentious movie where it's like all about making statements and not really telling a story. Yeah,
I guess so, because there's a story there to be told, but they don't want to tell it. It's just like...
Yeah, there was a lot of potential in this movie, and that was the funny part, is that there were all these elements that they had that felt like if there was a better writer and a better director, all of those elements would have been utilized to the fullest that they could have. But since it was with this director, some sort of an art house person who hasn't made a movie since 2009, all of the elements were wasted and they were just there to be there. It's sort of like in those shitty J.J. Abrams movies where he sets up all these elements of story and then they never pay off. It's like, I think they call it a mystery box story. Where
I've never heard of that.
That's what J.J. Abrams says, because he
really?
likes...
I don't know who that is.
It's this shitty storytelling technique that he uses where he introduces all these elements without really knowing what they'll mean. And then he figures it out later, or he just doesn't figure it out because he doesn't want to. And, we see how that works out with his terrible films. And this is another terrible film in The Reflecting Skin. I mean, the title alone is like... Okay. Reflecting Skin.
I don't know. It made me feel... What? It made me think of space. Like... like something that, like a spacesuit or a part of a spacecraft.
But like, when does anything ever reflect off of the skin in this movie?
I guess he was referring to Viggo Mortensen he's just arriving back from being in the Pacific. Because I guess he was going to be coming anyway, or his father did die. So maybe they contacted him. He came home early. I don't know. That was a little fudgy there. And he showed his brother, his little brother, who's kind of more of a focus in the movie.
Well, yeah, he's the main character,
Yeah.
Safi.
And it was a picture of, I think, the bombing of Hiroshima or one of those Nagasaki or Hiroshima, and it showed a baby with, I think, probably radiation burns on him, and somebody's holding him who's dressed up in a mask.
I wasn't really paying attention to that because I was starting to fall asleep.
Well, I think that was, he's mentioned the skin, that it reflected or something, and so that's why I was thinking that the movie is made from that.
Well, I hope that he gets off crack one day.
Well, I really don't know what that has even to do with the story that was going on.
Yeah.
Because it has absolutely nothing, I don't think. I'm thinking of it now, and I just don't know what that means.
See, Safi, wouldn't this have made the perfect drunken commentary movie? Because there's just so many random things that happen, and it's like, what is this movie?
Well, I hope, like I said, I hope it's based on a book.
No,
and I'll go read the book.
It's not.
That's a shame.
I know. It's like.
I mean, they just cut off the ending. It's like it's like when you go to the Goodwill and you're looking at things to purchase, to sell, and you find something and oh wow, this is good, and then you see a big chip or something like
which that happened. You had there's that statue that you gave me, that was that statue that would have been worth like $130.
Mm-hmm.
And then they're like, oh no, there's a little chip on it, and so you gave it to me.
Well, because it's not worth as much, or it's worth less. So, but it was even worse than that.
Yeah.
It was like a statue that had 2 legs and lost its legs.
It was like a statue.
Like they broke off.
It was like a statue that got put in the garbage disposal, and then like the top half of it just gets ground up into little pieces, and then you take out the bottom half and you're like, ooh, look how pretty it is.
Yeah.
It represents something.
I don't know, but I mean, I don't think I've ever seen a movie where the story just cut off like that.
I don't know, Safi. You've seen some pretty bad movies.
I have, but I mean, there's already obvious things that are missing, but there's still a story there.
Yeah.
There was still a story, and you could see the elements of it. And
the best part of the movie, though, was the characters, because there were a lot of great characters who had the potential to be in a really great story.
Mm-hmm.
And so I would say this is one of those movies where I would firmly say that it should be remade by someone, because
who knows how to do a story.
It was wasted.
Yeah, it really was.
So the movie starts off with, what are they doing, Safi? You got these little shitheads.
Oh, I don't even want to say.
You got these little fucking shitheads, and it's like, see, this is problem one, and it's a consistent problem with movies involving kids who are in peril, is that you actually have to like the kids.
Yeah.
And like in this fucking movie, you got these little shitheads, and it's like, what are they doing, Safi?
I was shocked. I thought they were doing what I saw them do. This one kid, who's the main character in the movie, gets a big, massive frog. And, I mean, I'm talking about as big as a baseball mitt. It's a very big frog. And he shows it to his 2 friends, and then they said they're going to do something that they keep doing. That they've done several times. So there's this woman who's coming.
But what are they doing, Safi?
And they're going to blow air up its butt.
Oh.
I guess. I'm not even sure.
Yes, Safi, that's what they do.
That kid to even do something like that is so gross. And it looks like it ends up looking like a big balloon. And so he sets it down on the road, and here comes this lady. And obviously they don't like her because they don't know her, they don't understand her.
No, they're playing a prank on her.
Well, yeah. That's right. So pulling a prank like that on somebody, and so they put it on the ground. It's making noise, and the woman comes up to it, and she bends down, and she sees this big puffed out frog, and then the main boy gets his slingshot and he shoots it, and it explodes all over her face. Blood all over her face and her clothes.
It's a pretty good scene because it's the perfect starting scene for like a dark horror movie.
Yeah, and that's what I kind of expected after that.
Yeah, and then the rest of the movie, it's like, fuck you.
Yeah.
Like the whole movie, like every single, like I don't think there's a single scene in the entire rest of the movie that matches the opening scene in terms of what it's like.
No, and there is a horrible thing going on in the movie.
Well, kind of.
It's very subtle, and it pops up here and there. We don't know why.
It's not horror, though.
Well, it's horrible if children are being killed.
But it's not like horror. It's more like drama.
Well, it's crime.
Thriller. It's like... there is something else that happens that was pretty good, too, but...
Oh, yeah.
Which we'll talk about. I don't know if you're referring to what I'm referring to, because...
The dad?
Yeah.
Yeah.
That was a pretty good horror scene. I thought, there were two great scenes in this movie. And those were the two great scenes. The rest of the movie was like... I don't even know what to rate this movie in terms of food, because I don't think I've ever eaten something as unsatisfying as this. Or,
I
no,
would just say I'll do it now. I'll call it a burned pizza that you can't even eat. It's been burned to a crisp, which actually what happens in the movie, but he can explain that in a little bit. But that's all I can do, because it's you can't eat it. So therefore, let's say at the beginning you could eat it, and maybe you reheated it, and you reheated it until it burned to a crisp. And therefore you couldn't finish it, right?
And then
the movie didn't have an ending.
And then the next day it's cold, so you have to heat it up again, and then you put it in the microwave again, and it's like, oh God, I don't think I want to eat this.
Yeah,
it's
that's horrible.
Yeah. So then what happens is, well, first off, we should talk about the landscape. It is a great setting for a horror film too, because there are these very wide open spaces. It's a very colorful film, and there's a lot of dirt and dust, and it feels like the perfect setting for a vampire movie.
Yeah.
Perfect. And all these elements that they set up, perfect elements for a vampire film. And then the mom, of course, well, we'll talk
She's
about...
a fruitcake.
Well, every adult in the movie is a fruitcake, Safi.
Oh, she's especially fruity.
Well, she's fruity patootie.
Oh.
What, Safi?
Well, she was also actually abusive.
Did she remind you of someone?
No, she was just abusive and awful.
Well, that's another weird thing is, even though the main kid is a little shithead, every adult in this movie is an abuser. And so it's kind of like, I don't know, like it would have been cool maybe if like one adult character wasn't abusive, and maybe he helps the main kid defeat the vampire. But no adult in the movie is good at all. The kid in the movie isn't good, so there's no good characters in the whole movie. Like, there's literally none.
There's no vampire either.
And so the mom tells this little shithead, she says, "You did a very bad thing. You have to go over to her house in the middle of nowhere and apologize to her." And he goes there, and I thought that was a great sequence too, because he goes in there, and then the complete opposite of what he expected to happen happens. And she's actually like, she really liked what he did. She thought it was really cool and funny.
And she said she used to attach firecrackers to cattails and let them explode.
Yeah.
Which I thought, oh my God.
And I thought, see, this seems like it could be a great movie. And if she was a vampire too, Like, oh, that would have been a great movie.
The thing is, kid didn't even know about vampires. What
Yeah.
happened was his father was reading something, and it was about vampires.
It was like a pulp novel.
And he explained to him some things about vampires, but he didn't explain enough the fact that you would never catch a vampire. You know, according to every single thing we've read or seen, a vampire wouldn't be going out in the middle of the day with the sun's overhead.
Actually, Safi, that was something that happened to vampires after Nosferatu. Originally, in Bram Stoker's Dracula, vampires don't give a fuck about the sun, and the sun doesn't do anything to them. So they could have had it to where she's like a different kind of vampire or something.
Oh, okay.
But they didn't bother to do that at all. Instead, it's just like he sees his dad reading about vampires, so therefore this woman is a vampire. And she says something else too, like a joke, where she tells him she's 200 and all this stuff. And
she just didn't want to tell her real age, but he thought she really was 200.
Well, she was very creepy, Safi.
Well, yeah, like, anybody who ties a vampire, ties a firecracker to a cat's tail, yeah, they're pretty creepy.
Yeah, like, Bernie, what would you think about someone doing that to you?
I ain't tolerating that kind of crap.
Bernie? I don't know what that meant. It probably meant, no thanks, Marco. So, you know, she seemed like she could have been a pretty creepy villain. Creepy main villain. Because then we meet these other characters who are these greasers, and they're riding around in like a classic car. And they come to get some gas, and they talk to him a little bit, and then they ride off. Because the little boy's
family sells gas. They have a little gasoline station.
And it's interesting because to me, the impression that I got was like the blonde woman was the video store owner from The Lost Boys. She was that type of character. And then the greasers were like the Lost Boys, you know, like the vampires. Yeah. And so I thought they'll be the other vampires and she'll be the main vampire.
Mm-hmm.
Of course, no, that doesn't happen because that's too good. We wouldn't want something good to happen in a vampire horror movie. Safi, that is disgusting.
I'll get it after. I'll drop my line.
You're like playing with your fingers and things, and it's like, ew. That's more of a horror movie than the movie we just watched.
Okay, Marco.
Good job, Safi.
Okay, Marco.
That's disgusting.
Okay, Marco.
So, they also have this thing where she gives the kid a giant whale spear, which was like the perfect steak for a vampire.
Right. It was.
And he's holding it, and it's like, oh, wow, this is going to be really awesome. You're going to get to see a really cool scene where somebody gets impaled with that steak. Nope. That doesn't happen.
Somebody gets cut in the hand handling it.
Well, that could have been cool, too. Like, they're setting up how dangerous it is, and somebody gets a little cut on it. Like, that was fine. But that's literally the only thing that happens with the spear the whole movie. The only thing.
I don't know what. So I wondered what was the significance of the spear. Really nothing.
Safi, I think the significance is that the director just wanted to say "fuck you."
I guess.
Because like basically this whole movie is some sort of a weird messaging movie about age and about growing up, and it's like I didn't want this. That's not what I wanted when I watched this movie. I didn't come here to watch a movie about growing up. I came here to watch a movie about vampires. And you could have still had some messaging about aging in the midst of a vampire movie. You could have still had moments like that. But they should have made an actual vampire movie. Because this is probably one of the most disappointing movies I've ever seen.
Well, to me it was disappointing because it had the makings of a good story, and then it just dropped off with no end.
But was the rest of the story any good, Safi?
No, because it lacked a lot of detail.
Yeah, it as I said, there's all these elements that are...
How did that get in here?
Oh. Well, I'll take care of that, Safi. I don't know.
Some big hornet or something? A big bee?
That's pretty weird.
God, is that weird?
Well, maybe it wants to do a review.
I don't know.
So, Safi, continue talking about the movie. I'll have to do something.
Okay, well, there's those three greasers we refer to. Apparently, they like little boys. And remember, there's this one boy who's the main character, and he has two friends.
Yeah, one of them is this little shithead named Eben.
Eben, or
and the
Eben.
other one is like this little shithead redhead kid, Ginger.
And his name is Cam, or...
I don't know.
I don't know. I don't even know it, and I don't even know the main character's name because they're just... that's the thing, Marco mentioned it, that when you watch a movie, you hope that there's something that makes a character likable. And there wasn't any likable... I thought Viggo Mortensen was a little likable.
No, it wasn't.
Except that when he pushed his brother over...
He was like an abuser, too. Like, that's the thing, is that his character was set up... His character was set up as being this really cool, heroic figure who would come in and... the main kid, he's got to deal with all these issues. And
you can put him out the back door.
Okay.
Catch him.
I will.
God.
I know, Safi. It's like your best friend.
I don't know where he came from. Really, where he just showed up. I guess when a person came in to look at the refrigerator because it has scratches on it, they're going to replace it. But he'd never seen it. He had a report about it, and he'd read the report, and he wanted to see about the report, what it meant. So he came in, and maybe when he came in, he let that thing in. It's just weird because it's real chilly today. So something like that doesn't usually function very well when it's that chilly. So anyway, back to the story,
well,
whatever you want to call it.
This movie didn't function very well, Safi.
No, but these greasers are not just greasers with this really nice car that's been fixed up to perfection. There's at least three of them. They're child killers or child kidnapper killers.
Well, they're basically the personification of death, and they're all wearing black. And so then at the end of the movie, there's this weird thing where the whole movie, the vampire woman, she's wearing black clothing. And then at the end of the movie, she's wearing white clothing.
All white.
And she tells them that she wants a ride into town, which means that she wants to die. And then they ask the kid if he wants to come too, and he says he isn't ready. And it's like, oh, isn't this cute? It's some stupid ass fucking messaging about like he's not ready to die, but she is because she's 200 years old.
Well, also,
like it's like what was going on?
His brother liked her. In fact, I think he said he loved her, and he wanted to go away with her or be with her or something. And his brother didn't like that because his little brother didn't like it because, for one thing, he thought she was a vampire, and then number two, that she was going to kill him.
His brother was going to abandon him.
Yeah, and
he was going to run away with her, and it's like
that would mean abandoning him too.
This is another terrible adult character, and then the mom is terrible. Talk about the mom, Safi, because she's really the worst one. Like she is
she's
really
sick
weird.
In the head.
She's
and I don't even know how to explain. She has this thing about smell. But then when the brother came home, he said something about the smell, too.
She smells gasoline.
All the time. And the thing is, we find out that the father wanted to be a beekeeper, but the mother wanted to own the gas station. And so all she did throughout and we didn't know this until the end of the movie, And all throughout the movie, she said, "Oh, your father smells like gas. The whole house smells like gasoline." And over. I mean, several times.
Yeah, it's really bizarre.
And she is the one who wanted to buy the service station. And he wanted to be a beekeeper. So, I mean, it's her fault. But she's acting like it's all his fault. And so we didn't even know. We just assumed, well, I guess he went out and in fact, I didn't even know they had a service station until those greasers came up and wanted to fill up with gas. And then I see him going over, because it didn't look like a gas station at all.
Yeah.
There was no resemblance to it. Even the pumps were different. I don't even know how to explain that. They were really weird. So, I mean, it's really hard to, because I'm trying to put together what happened, and
but it's
just
basically
awful.
a string of random shit happening the whole movie.
It's all these random events. So anyway, you get Eben he's not happy that they killed the frog. He thinks that's a bad thing.
Well, it was a bad thing.
It was a bad thing, but I
is
mean,
that
they
did it all the time, though. Apparently,
well,
so
yeah.
it was weird how, like, this one time he's like, "Oh no."
Well, I guess he started getting a guilty conscience.
Yeah.
So, anyway, the next thing you know, Evans turns up in a well on his back, and he's dead. And I knew it was those men.
How?
I knew it was because they said something. There was something they said, or the way they acted with the boy. They acted inappropriately, and they said inappropriate. It was just weird. You just had a feeling. And but I wasn't for sure. But the sheriff thought, for some reason, way in the past, the sheriff or somebody saw this boy's father. The
main shithead.
Yeah.
His father was
a gay or something.
No, he was a pedophile.
He's a pedophile. And he was kissing a boy in the barn or something. And so they immediately thought, and this would happen like a decade ago. Nothing had happened since then. And they assumed, because that Eben had been killed, first he was missing, then he was killed, that it was his father that did it, that this boy's father.
Which was kind of an interesting story, because...
Now that could have been another story.
Yeah, it could have been another, like, sort of Crucible type of plot where the kid's trying to save his father by getting the real bad guy. Like, that could have been cool.
Well,
But, oh no, they didn't do that.
I don't know what they were trying to do.
But then they had this weird moment, because I was trying to get you to talk about the mom. The moment where
Oh, yeah.
the boy, the little shithead, is going to stay up late because he wants to. Or no, wait, no, what was she mad at? The fact that he had a lighter or something, or a candle that he lit up, and so that he could read about vampires.
Maybe.
And so she abuses him by taking him downstairs, and she forces him to drink like an entire pitcher of water, even though he has to go to the bathroom. And it's like, wow, this is a really evil woman.
Well, it reminded me of She Was Sick. You saw that movie or story about that woman that has a multiple personality disorder.
Which
I
one?
think Sally Field was the person who played. This happened in real life. Although I think I brought this up before a long time ago. There's no such thing as multiple personality disorder or something.
Is.
Well, I don't know. Don't ask me. I didn't understand that when I heard it. But this is I can't think of the name of the movie. I've seen it a couple times, but it's been a while. And her mother would make her drink all this water too, and then she would tie her leg to the piano stool, and then she would play the piano, and the vibrations of it would the little girl could feel it, and she'd have to go to the bathroom.
Safi, this is a bizarre fantasy that you've concocted.
No, it was in this movie, and anyway, it reminded me of that. And the mother was sick in the head.
And so was this mother.
Yes.
And it was pretty disturbing because you think, oh, is this going to be like an It, where the you have a killer clown, and then you have all these terrible adults too?
No. I didn't even think about that, but that would remind you.
Didn't it remind you of that?
Yeah, it does. I was just thinking, but you don't know that movie, but I remember it.
Well, she reminded me more of like, I don't know, like the mother in Psycho, like that type of a character.
Yeah.
And of course, she's terrible to the dad. And she did a pretty good. All the acting was the acting all pretty good, Safi.
I think so.
I don't think the acting was the problem. The problem
was not at all.
Like as usual, for the millionth time, the problem was the writing.
Yeah, story. And I do not understand when you write something. Yeah, when you edit it over and over, you get too close to it, and you can actually start over editing and actually probably wrecking it. But you've got to think about when you write something, you want it to read like something you would enjoy reading. So if you went back and read it and you didn't like what you read, then it probably isn't good.
Yeah.
And they really need to learn that. I don't know what the deal is with this bad writing.
Well, it's like what we should do at the end of the year when we rank everything.
Oh boy.
We should do statistics of like how many movies in total are bad mostly because of the writing.
Well, and this isn't even a current movie.
Yeah.
This is an older movie. Not old, just a vintage.
But I guarantee
it's a vintage movie.
I guarantee it's like 99%. That's how bad it is. And the problem with that is that all these scripts got okayed. All these scripts got accepted. Safi, if you were a person in charge at a studio and you read the script, what would you say? Because I would say...
I'd say, what happened? Where is this? What happened to that?
Okay, we can take this script.
Where's the ending?
We can take this script and I'll be rewriting it tonight and I'll be making it a good script and you'll get paid anyway. Like, that's what I would say. Because this movie was wasted. Like, it was just a complete and total waste. And then what happens is the dad is just feeling really guilty. And so he goes to the gas pump and he drinks gas and he pours gas all over himself. And it is a very disturbing scene. It's very realistic. And it was great because it was another scene where it's like this could have been in a great horror movie. It was like a scene out of Children of the Corn or something, another Stephen King story, and he lights himself on fire. And it's unfortunate because at the end he almost doesn't do it, and then he already lit the match, so he basically at the end it's like he was killed. He didn't really commit suicide. It was like an accident at the end. And that's when his brother comes home. And you think, now that his brother's home, he's going to help him out. And he's going to help figure out there's a vampire and he's going to be the only adult who believes him. And they're going to defeat evil. And instead of that, his brother just acts like another terrible adult. And he pushes his brother around. He yells at him like he's horrible.
Yeah, and it's surprising because I thought the way they were talking about him, and I thought when he showed up he would be good.
Yeah, it was like
he
a
would
build-up.
Be solid, solid good person.
It was a story build-up where they're saying like this guy's heroic. He's a really good person. And then he shows up and he's like just the worst. I mean, I think even though the mom is terrible, the mom is like a vegetable the rest of the movie. That was the funniest part.
That's true. She was like all over the place. she'd hit the little boy in the face, like just, side slaps with the back of her hand. It's hard to describe. It not really painful, but it's the fact she was making him drink all that water. And he said, I have to go to the bathroom. I can't hold this.
And she didn't care.
And then he ended up peeing all over himself. Because he said he had to go, and please stop doing that. And I have to go, and he had to go. All right. So.
Safi, I wish, you know what I would do if I was seeing this movie in the theater? I'd turn and I'd say, I have to go. And then I'd leave and I'd go to the bathroom for the rest of the movie. Because then I wouldn't have to watch the rest of the movie.
Well, there was, talking about Viggo Mortensen again. He was in, I think what I saw him in was this horse racing movie where I think he goes with the horse to Saudi Arabia.
Well, he's a great actor. I've seen him in quite a few things.
Well, this was a good movie, and it was really popular.
Wasn't that Hidalgo?
I think so, yeah.
Because we saw that. I got rid of that VHS. And then I saw him in Green Book, and I saw him in the movie this year. He's a really, really, really good actor. It's just that the script was not up to par. And his character, I think his character was the worst one in the movie. Because he had the most potential. And he was the one who was the most disappointing. Because they built him up only to disappoint you. And they had this hilarious scene where he's trying to talk to this woman, the vampire woman. And that's another thing, is that the vampire woman kind of drops in and out of the movie.
Yeah.
Like, she just appears and then she disappears, and she's very, very in what would you describe her as, Safi?
Oh, I don't know. Get off.
Just like unimportant as the movie goes on.
It's weird. It's because you think the way they start telling it, you think that she is going to be like a vampire.
The main villain.
The main villain, the it woman, because, you see her after they pull that prank with the frog. She goes to the boy's house and she talks to his mom. And of course she goes after her son.
And really, it was all just to lure the son to her house so that she could, be with him.
I guess.
It was very creepy.
And then she gives to him that big harpoon from her family. Used to be a whaling family, and it was from her family. And it's heavy and big and bulky. Has a very sharp point on it, and she gives that to the little boy. And he's not that, he's probably 9 years old. And it was heavy. Anyway, you have all this, and then all of a sudden, she's not really in it. And then when Viggo comes home from the war...
She becomes his love interest. That's what she becomes.
Yeah.
And then it becomes about, oh no, the vampire is killing my brother. Because he's aging, and his gums are bleeding, and he's losing his hair.
Well, I think he's been exposed to radiation.
That's what happened.
It went in the war.
So, and that's another thing, too, is that you could have also had it be like a fake out, and then maybe there could be vampires in those boys. Like, you could have had that, too. That would have been good. But there's just so many, you could have done this, you could have done that.
Yeah.
And then what happens instead? Something really weird happens where the main shithead and his shithead friend, the ginger, they find a baby. And it's...
Is that real?
It's like a prop from a Halloween store.
Well, I thought it had to do with that grave. Remember they said that grave of the Dracula woman? I'll just call her that, but she's not a vampire.
Well, it was Eben. It was something about they thought that maybe she had made Eben into the baby.
Yeah, I didn't understand any of that.
It was just like, what the F? And then the main shithead takes the baby, and he takes it home. And he talks to it, and he goes to sleep next to it, and it's like, what? Why? What is going on?
And I still like, was this a concrete piece that went in the graveyard, like on a grave? Or was this a mummified? Because it was very, the way it was and everything was very intact and
you can
hard.
You can explain you can explain most of the things in the movie. Like, you can explain that
Sorry.
that the brother has radiation poisoning. You can explain all these things, but what's the explanation for the baby?
The only thing I think is, remember, she was sitting down by, or bending down by this grave, and it was all broken. And it had an angel on it. She said, well, it's because it's deteriorated over the years because of the weather. It broke apart. So I was thinking maybe it was a piece that had gone on the grave. It was like probably for her husband who died. But to me, because it didn't look, this is supposed to be a fetus, not petrified, a mummified fetus. I don't know. It looked like it was from the grave.
I thought it would
like
have been
a piece.
It would have been another great horror movie element if the baby actually came to life and started talking.
Actually, I thought it was going to.
And saying, like,
it was supposed to be a horror.
Kill that woman. The woman is evil.
It was supposed to.
Like, I thought that could have been a great, like, a horror movie element, and they wasted that. What happens to the baby? Like, the baby just does nothing the rest of the movie.
No,
it just sits there in his
or
bed.
Something. It's a hard. It looks like a piece of like a tombstone. Like
it looks really gross.
Like marble, or I don't think it's expensive as marble, but
it looks like a giant booger or something.
No, it looked like a baby, but the problem is the way it looked. I don't think a baby would be like that. In death.
You know what it's sort of like? It's sort of like in Joe Dirt, where Joe finds that thing that he thinks is a meteor, and he keeps sitting on it, and he keeps eating food off of it, and then he finds out that the meteor is petrified shit from an airplane or something.
Yeah.
And like that's what it's like.
Well,
with
no,
this baby.
It's more defined than that.
But
it does look like
you
a
know
baby.
what I mean. It's a waste of time. It's just nothing. It's like a nothing plot device. It does nothing for the story.
Well, the thing is, it's another thing where, is this a real baby? The way it didn't look real to me.
Well,
sorry.
It's not Rosemary's Baby.
And then, is this something that somebody killed? Or is it somebody had a miscarriage and it died? You don't know. It's like that's what we're saying. Several parts of the story are missing, and then they just chop it off at the end.
Yeah.
And that's why it's really hard to talk about, because it's hard to explain what's inexplicable.
So then what happens is they go to the vampire woman's house, the main shithead and his ginger shithead friend. And for some reason they start like destroying her bedroom.
Yeah,
and
tearing everything up.
It just comes out of nowhere. It's like, what are they doing? Like, they think they're getting some sort of revenge for her killing Eben.
Yeah.
And so they're like destroying her bedroom and tearing up her flowers, and it's like, what? Why? Why, Safi?
I don't know.
Why? So then what happens is probably Safi's most favorite scene in the movie is that the ginger shithead kid, he gets kidnapped by the greasers.
In front of the boy.
Right in front of him.
So he sees now who's been kidnapping the kids.
Yeah.
It's them. Does he tell anybody?
No.
No.
He just doesn't care.
Why doesn't he tell anybody?
He pretends like it doesn't even happen. or something.
I was shocked.
So then they have the scene with the sheriff, and I think the sheriff was a great character in the film. He was another character who could have been like a great horror movie character. He had an eye patch, and he tells the kid a story about how he's been a sheriff for all these years. He's gotten bitten by a dog, he's gotten clawed by a cat, and all these things. And it was cool. It's like he's kind of like a Van Helsing type of character or something. And but then he's like, I know that you're hiding something, and I'm gonna get it out of you whatever way possible. And it's like, yeah, like I wish that he would. Like I really wished that the sheriff would have like taken the kid and just tortured him until he told him, hello, I saw the greasers kidnap my friend. Like, why wouldn't he tell them? It's just so inexplicable, and it doesn't make any sense other than the fact that it's not even real. Yeah. It's just symbolic for some stupid message about aging. So then what happens is nothing. Nothing happens. Like, there's a drunken guy. He thinks that the dad is still alive, so he comes. And that's another thing, too. They could have had a twist where it turns out the dad is a vampire or something. Like, they could have done all these twists, but they chose instead to have nothing happen. And then Viggo Mortensen sleeps with the vampire woman, and they love each other. And I'm just saying all this stuff because it means nothing. Like, it's just all the stuff that happens that means absolutely nothing. Finally, the vampire woman is dressed in white, and she meets with the main boy, the main shithead. And she tells him, when you grow old, you're going to have diarrhea, and you're going to go everywhere all over yourself, and you're going to lose your hair, and your skin's going to get gross, and your face is going to get gross, and you're going to get gross, and everything's going to be gross. But if you have someone who loves you, it'll be fine. Remember that, Safi? Wasn't that hilarious?
It's just all these things. It's like it suddenly grows a wart. And the wart is supposed to mean something in the context of the whole movie. And it means nothing.
And so that monologue has to be one of the funniest moments in film history. Because it goes on for like 10 minutes of her just saying things for 10 minutes long. And then at the end she's like, but if somebody loves you, it'll be fine. And so then the greasers come in their car, and the vampire woman goes with them because she wants a ride into town. Oh. And then the main shithead, he says, I'm not ready yet. And it's like, see, none of this is real. It's just all symbolic for a stupid message that nobody wanted. So then they find the vampire woman the next day, and she's dead. And he still doesn't tell them that he saw the greasers take another person away, and now she's dead. And Viggo Mortensen gets upset about it. He starts crying, and it's like, okay, his character was a total waste of time. The mom starts crying for some reason. Like, everybody starts crying for no reason. And then the main shithead runs into the middle of a field, and the movie ends with him just crying and screaming at the top of his lungs. And then the sun sets, and that's the end of the movie.
Yeah.
Safi?
I told you.
What was that?
I don't know.
Sleepy Safi?
Yeah, Sleepy Safi.
Sleepy Safi.
I'd already talked about 90% of it, and it's just inexplicable. It's probably like having 3 jigsaw puzzles that have been thrown out to be done, only they've been thrown out all together, mixed up in a pile. And in order to form the story or to form the puzzle, you have to pull the pieces out and you try to put them together. But there just wasn't too much to put together here because there's so many things they could have done with it. It's not just one thing. And, in order to make things interesting, they could have had it kind of like in Chucky, although you probably don't really need it. But they had two stories that are concurring.
Yeah, well, Chucky sucks.
And they support each other.
Chucky sucks.
And they could have had multiple storylines because you can pick them out on your own. They have Vigo comes home from the war. Vigo loves that girl or wants to be with her or something. I don't know. Child killers, that's another thing.
They also had like this weird subplot that didn't go anywhere where the ginger kid kept on getting left out of everything.
Yeah.
Like the other two kids would be like, no, I'm going to do that. No, I'm going to do that. No, I'm going to do that. And so you could have had a story where the ginger kid betrays the main kid and hooks up with the vampire woman. Could have had something like that too. Could have had all these different things. It reminds me a lot of a TV show that we reviewed this year.
What's that?
What's that one called, Safi?
I don't know.
Better Call Saul. Season 6. The show where the whole season we just spent our reviews saying, they could have done this, they could have done that, they could have done this, and instead we get just a bunch of crap that they did.
Yeah.
Probably one of the worst. I would say it's probably the second or third worst television show I've ever seen in history.
Oh, that's too bad.
This movie is very reminiscent of that, except at least with this movie, I wasn't expecting anything after 5 seasons of shows. So it gets a little bit more of a pass for me. The food rating that I'm going to give this movie, you're going to be surprised because you're going to be like, no, I like that place. But we've been going to this new Chinese place for a couple of weeks called Timmy's Walk. And it's sad because the first time that we had it, I got chicken lo mein with dirty fried rice. I mean, dirty as in like a bunch of stuff mixed in.
Mm-hmm.
It was cooked very well, and there were some good tasting things in it, but I thought this is pretty gross. So I thought maybe the next time I'll get something different and it'll be better. Yeah. And so that was like a wasted storyline, like in this movie. And then the next week, I get Japanese teriyaki chicken, which I should have gotten teriyaki beef. I don't know anyone who eats teriyaki chicken. But then I got it, and it was so gross because it didn't taste like teriyaki at all. It tasted like sugar, and the vegetables were gross. It was just a very unsatisfying meal. And so I thought, maybe next time. And then the third week, because Safi likes it, she thinks it's the greatest thing that's ever happened to Chinese food. The third week, I got orange chicken with rice. And, of course, that wasn't very satisfying because there wasn't any vegetables.
Oh.
And the orange chicken was gross, once again. And that's what it was like with this movie where, although things were made very well, none of it tasted good. And I gave it a million chances. There were all these plots that could have gone somewhere. They didn't go anywhere. I gave the movie a bunch of chances. I gave the restaurant a bunch of chances. And they blew it. So what do you think of that, Safi?
Oh, it sounds good.
Did you like Timmy's Walk?
Actually, I had cashew chicken, and I had it every single time that he had teriyaki,
well, you
lo
see
mein.
how I tried 3 drastically different things.
And I just stuck with the same thing, and I liked it. Ever since I've gotten my taste back, it's just been great. Because if something's really good and I like it, and I could just eat a lot, but I can't do that because of the gallbladder thing. but I'll eat as much as I can. But it just tastes good, and it has a taste.
Yeah.
Period. And that's just so. I haven't had that in like 10 years.
It is made well, though. I do think it's made well.
Yeah, I think they pay it because I've had
it's just the
cashew
flavors.
chicken at another place in town, and they burn it all the time. It's always overcooked.
It's really hard to find a good Chinese place.
It is
though.
a very hard
It's
thing to find a good Chinese place here.
It's better to just make Chinese food at home.
Right.
Which
Here,
is
anyway.
the same thing with this movie, where we've both been coming up with better plots than the actual ones in the movie.
Yeah.
So.
All right. Well, if you like this video, because I don't think there's much else to say, if you want to watch it, go right ahead. I'd love to see what other people thought.
Yeah, because it's for free
and
on
what happened
Tubi.
to what happened to the ending? I would love to know. I just don't see how that could have been satisfactory for them either.
If you turn this script into a film professor, it would get a D.
Probably. Or just not even make it to that because people get really mad about.
Safi, don't go to sleep.
Anyway,
God, you're such a fucking
anyway, so
snooze
if you
fest.
like this, give it a thumbs up, and if you want to become one of our subscribers, we welcome all new subscribers, and we like to hear your comments about what you've been watching, if you've watched this in particular, if you would like to, what could be done to make it better, or if you thought it was good enough, and that's it. So our next reviews, I don't know what they'll be, but I know
Tomorrow
that Chucky's...
will be the X-Files second movie.
Okay, and then Chucky and American Horror Story will be coming up on Wednesday.
Well,
into Thursday.
that'll be for Thursday.
Yeah.
And then the uploading speed here is so good that, we won't even have to worry about, we'll just do the review on Friday for Horror Story.
Right.
You can do it all on Thursday.
Yeah.
So,
So goodbye, everybody.
bye.